We're live. Ladies and gentlemen, here in the room, but also the audience online, warmly welcome to this session, Landscapes for Water, Scaling Up Locally Led Climate Action. This session is organized by the Alliance for Global Water Adaptation, AGWA, Australian Water Partnership, and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, FAO, and Stockholm International Water Institute. CIWI, AGWA and FAO are also here representing the Forest Water Champions, an expert group from the forestry and water sector that would work together and advocate for the important role played by the forest-water nexus in securing resilient landscapes. This session will focus on best practices, tools and local initiatives that strengthen the climate action and water resilience across landscapes, followed by a discussion on how they can be upscaled and systematically incorporated into global and national processes. I will be your guide through the session, and with us today are Dr. Phil Duncan, Australian Water Partnership. Hi, Phil. Sorry. Mr. Stephen Jopai-Maillet. He's online, sorry, that's my fault. Mr. Goodwin Fishani Gonwe, over there. Director of Environmental Management Department of the Government of Zambia and Global Environmental Facility, GEF, operational focal point for Zambia. Dr. Amy Duchel, FAO. Hi, Amy. Mr. Fumihiko Tominaga. Hi. The Climate Policy Specialist at the Green Climate Fund, GCF. And Dr. Malin Lundberg Ingmarsson, Program Manager, Stockholm International Water Institute. And last but not least, Honourable Mrs. Carleen Maywald, the South Australia Water Ambassador, who will provide us the closing remarks today. Thank you and welcome. I would also like to introduce Priska Lang. Priska is a visual harvester and social artist who specializes in socio-ecological change, the nervous system and trauma. We're pleased to announce that Priska will do a graphic harvesting during the session. That will capture the key messages towards the end of this session. And we want to ask you in the audience during the whole session to share your key takeaways from the presentations and discussions. Please let us know by typing your thoughts in the Mentimeter. Go to Menti. I think it's on the screen here. I can't see its reflection. Please go to menti.com and use the code presented on the screen. Sorry. Yeah, okay. So next slide, please. Is it there now? One more, please. There we are. The address to menti.com and the QR code or the code for getting in to make your voices heard. So, with no further ado, I now welcome Dr. Phil Duncan to the stage. Phil has over 40 years' experience working with Aboriginal people and government to improve the lives of the Aboriginal people through both his employment and active community work. Phil, the stage is yours.
Yama Ninda, Phil Naya, Gomeroi Māori. That's hello and welcome. My name's Phil Duncan. I'm a very proud Kamilaroi man from Moree, New South Wales, Australia. Maribor Thomas, that's thank you in my language. What an honour and a privilege it is to be asked to be a part of such a distinguished session with distinguished people who are like-minded with our collaboration. But before I go any further, as customary in my country, we want to acknowledge country. I'm a visitor to this country, and I want to pay homage to the people of this country for allowing me to have my footprint, and I hope I tread softly throughout my stay. Today you're going to be not entertained, you're going to learn, I hope, you take it as messages about the strength of collaboration, sharing knowledge, sharing opportunity. Because the future through my lens is being better together. We live in a world of shrinking resources as in money, availability, but what price do we put on our knowledge and our willingness to share it? So you're going to be introduced to some wonderful initiatives through some great voices of some great people from their own countries. I'm not going to deliver a keynote. I had the wonderful opportunity of being a part of a leadership panel in Ozwater conference this year in May in Australia. And I was interviewed with my Bawa, one of my Bawas, my sister, the Honourable Carleen Maywald is also my Bawa, my sister, but Emeritus Professor Cynthia Mitchell and I shared the stage at our national conference. And without any further ado, I would like you to play that video because this is my keynote and this is my message. Please. We're going to be living in a world of shrinking resource availability as we move forward. Plague, COVID, fire, climate change, it's all here. It's all impacting our country. It's all impacting on our people. It's all impacting on our community. We need to look at how we can create a defining moment in this country that can cascade out across the globe as best water management principles to move forward together.
I really do think we need to slow down because in slowing down, what we get to do is to hear a little bit of what's happening inside ourselves, and that emotion that we saw in the room today, what we need to pull forward into how we do our various roles. And the way that we can do that is to give ourselves enough space to tap into it.
We're going to be living in a world of shrinking resource availability as we move forward. Plague, COVID, fire, climate change. It's all here. It's all impacting on our country. It's all impacting on our people. It's all impacting on our community. We need to look at how we can create a defining moment in this country that can cascade out across the globe as best water management principles to move forward together.
I really do think we need to slow down because in slowing down, what we get to do is to hear a little bit of what's happening inside ourselves, and that emotion that we saw in the room today, that's what we need to pull forward into how we do our various roles. And the way that we can do that is to give ourselves enough space to tap into it. So I would say we need to slow down a little bit, notice that emotion, see what's going on, use a different set of senses to see what's going on, because that's what will allow us to see a broader range of potential ways forward, and that's what we need.
I believe we should be looking at the future of our kids, our next generations, because they're the ones that are going to be responsible for the future management regimes that we put into place now. And that is the future for me. Collaboration, working together, sharing the load and sharing the journey, and leaving a very, very strong environment and a collaborative society for our future generations. I could not be prouder to stand with my Bawa Emeritus Professor Cynthia Mitchell with that, and I hope that message resonates with you, and I hope you enjoy this session, and I hope you start thinking about what the future of our planet looks like through the eyes of our kids and our next generation. Yoay. Back over to you, Matagan, my brother.
Yeah. Thank you, Phil, for that superb and gripping kickoff of this session. I think we know what we're here for. It's now time to introduce the next speaker, and after the keynote and online, I will present a local online will present a local solution. Mr. Stephen Chupai Majé from the Tsuro Trust. Do we have you online? There we have you. The Tsuro Trust is a community-based organization in Zimbabwe that focuses on empowering rural communities to engage in sustainable and profitable agriculture. Mr. Stephen Chupai is joining us online to present his insights from the climate risk-informed decisions analysis methodology. The floor is yours, Stephen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me. I had requested the technical team there to assist by sharing my slides from that end. I hope they are ready to do that. Please confirm if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. The technical team, can you please go ahead and share my slides that I sent over? Possibly as they do that, Maji Chupai Stephen with Tsuro Trust in Chimanimani, Zimbabwe, as head of programs for the organization that I'm working with. So I'm here to share a brief case study of the experiences that we had with the CRIDA processes in Chimanimani in partnership with the UNESCO Regional Office for Southern Africa. Slide number 1.
We unfortunately don't have the slides, so if you can hear me, Stephen, would you please tell us what's on the slides, and I think we have to proceed from that. So the technology is battling us a little bit, but we stay on.
Yes, can I continue?
Yes, you can continue.
It's okay. Possibly in the interest of time, I'll just present here without the slides. For those who may not be familiar with the place we come from, we are in Chimanimani, which is in southeastern Zimbabwe in Manicaland province. And in terms of the climatic conditions of the area, it's quite varied, containing all the natural regions that we find in the country. Essentially, we have the highland area, which receives an annual rainfall in excess of 1,200 millimeters. With an altitude of 2,400 millimeters above sea level, going down to the lower veld side, which with an altitude of 350 millimeters above sea level, receiving 300 millimeters annual rainfall. And 42% of the district is under forestry plantations. And generally, the whole district is considered a key biodiversity area, as it is part of the Eastern Afro-Montane Biodiversity Hotspot. It was recently designated a biosphere reserve in June 2022 in recognition of the vast biological diversity that the area has in terms of both plant and animal life forms. In terms of water management, Chimanimani district is situated at the heart of two river catchments, which is the Sawe and the Budzi river basins, and sustainable ecosystem management is crucial for water supply and management of flood risks in Zimbabwe and Mozambique because of the geographical location that we have. We are really at the watershed of a number of river systems that drain into Mozambique, and land use management has implications for downstream communities locally, especially given that we have lots of irrigation schemes downstream within the country. And it also has a lot of flood risk implications for communities in neighboring Mozambique to the east. Our experience with the CRIDA post-cyclone Idai is that when UNESCO ROSA came to us to partner to try and implement the CRIDA process as a bottom-up approach to try and improve climate change adaptation planning, the rationale was essentially to circumvent the top-down approaches that are usually seen within the field to water resource management, with the resultant problem that if we use these top-down approaches, we have a very narrow problem definition scope, and we really wanted to make sure that we circumvent that problem. So our job essentially in the process was to map the current players and actions within the climate change adaptation space within the district. We were also supposed to map and categorize the water users that we have within that landscape, and of course, estimate water use within the district. Then the last point on the terms of reference was to identify preferred climate change adaptation pathways or options from the lens of the communities. This is where it was very important for us, because we really needed to make sure that our climate change adaptation planning is informed from the bottom, from the communities, from the perspectives of the communities that we are serving. And the key highlights that came, next slide. The key highlights that came out of the CRIDA process from our end, the first highlight is that both our stakeholders and our communities appreciated a lot the fusion of bottom-up approaches with dialogue platforms as a promising approach to climate change adaptation planning. And it was very clear from the engagement with the communities that water scarcity is perceived as a real concern, especially given that population pressure on ecologically sensitive areas like springs and watersheds was on the high, as more people were migrating from dry areas, coming to locate themselves within the greener belts of the district. And when asked what they preferred to be the focus of the programming around climate change adaptation in terms of water access, there was a differential response from the communities depending on their location on the landscape. For instance, the upland communities, which received very high rainfall, they conceived safely conveying of runoff water as a key intervention that can protect them from mudslides that can happen if we have a lot of water within their landscape, which is what our experience was during Cyclone Idai. On the other hand, the low-veld communities perceived sinking as much water into the ground as a key concern, as this was going to make sure that they are able to recharge underground water. Most of the communities in the dry underground water sources, whose water tables are continuously running away. And in the interest of recharging those underground waters, communities downstream perceived sinking water into the ground as the most key priority to them. Then in terms of priorities that came from the communities through the engagement in the CRIDA process, I think 3 or 4 major action points came out as critical. The first one is watershed or catchment area management. The second one was protection of wetlands, especially from invasion by a lot of settlers who are migrating into greener pastures, into greener belts of the district. Then, of course, investment in irrigation infrastructure for our communities downstream, the construction of catch dams, earth dams, and any other civil engineering works that can allow the communities to sink as much water into the ground as possible. Thank you very much for your time. I think this is our experience in brief from Chimanimani. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. It's really and much appreciate that you took your time, could have your time in sharing with us the insights and experience you have from working with the CRIDA project. So once again, thank you, Stephen. It's time to move on to the second local solutions presentation. My dear colleague, Dr. Malin Lundberg Ingmarsson, Program Manager in the Water for Resilient Landscapes team at CIWI. Malin will give you a sneak peek of the Water Smart Forest and Landscape Restoration tool that her team is currently developing. Welcome, Malin.
Thanks so very much, Thomas, and hello, everyone. So let's see, next slide, please. And we can go one more. Thanks. Okay, so the world is really screaming for reliable and effective climate solutions. And this report, where we are mapping links between freshwater and climate change mitigation, it showed that we need to work with integrated and cross-sectoral approaches or solutions. And also it showed that water smart climate mitigation or climate mitigation measures, they are often not nature-based, and they often have strong synergies with climate adaptation and resilience. So if you want to know more, I have a QR code here I can show you later. Okay, so at CIWI, we are now involved in different restoration projects, and in our work, we see that restoration initiatives are often not sufficiently considering water. And there is so much funding globally going into restoration initiatives. And what we fear is that a lot of these efforts are lost if we don't work across sectors and factor in water in that work. And a landscape, it can be a small watershed or a large river basin, but no matter the scale, clean water is essential for landscapes to be or become resilient, but also for the ecosystem services that they are providing. And it essentially comes down to a healthy hydrological cycle. So, next please. So that is why we, together with GIZ, are developing this tool. It's called the Water Smart Forest and Landscape Restoration Tool. And we do that to assess water risks, but also opportunities, and to mainstream water into FLR-relevant initiatives and plans and policies. But also to get the water smart FLR into implementation states. So the goal is to optimize water-related ecosystem services and to ensure resilience and productivity in the restored landscapes. The tool's main target groups that is decision makers and landscape managers that are involved in restoration initiatives or other relevant landscape interventions, for example, at national, subnational, or local level. And the tool will ensure that the intervention is participatory, inclusive, and transparent. And what you see here in the picture is the 6 modules that is making up the tool methodology. And the first part is the preparatory phase. There we are identifying water-related ecosystem services that are at risk. We are mapping potential entry points for Water Smart FLR in existing policy and plans, such as the NDCs and the NAPs, for example. And we are also mapping all relevant stakeholders. And then moving into the second part of the tool methodology, that's the workshop phase, where we are bringing together all the stakeholders and invite them to jointly follow this methodology to assess readiness for the implementation of Water Smart FLR. And in addition to this tool, we are also developing a help desk to support the implementation of Water Smart FLR, so going beyond just assessing the readiness for implementation. And through this whole process, we have help from a reference group, and that is building on the Forest Water Champions expert group that Thomas was mentioning before. And they really help us to ensure that the tool is effective and user-friendly. Next, please. Let's see, yes. So I will shortly also take a minute to mention this new research project. It's called Reform It, and it's focusing on resilient forest-based climate mitigation. And this is a 4-year project that will generate knowledge on how to safeguard the resilience of forest-based climate change mitigation measures under shifting hydroclimatic conditions. And it's led by Stockholm Resilience Center and with different partners, for example, CIWI here. And the results from the research project will be fed into our Water Smart FLR tool and its help desk. And here at COP, they are initiating stakeholder consultations. So if you would be interested in participating in this, please contact my colleague here, Anna Tengberg, Senior Advisor at CIWI, to discuss more about this. And there will also be a session here in the Resilience Hub on Monday, the 11th at noon, 12 o'clock, where Anna will participate and tell you more about this project. It's called Transformative Leverage and Intervention Points for Climate and Biosphere Resilience. So Please be there. And thanks for me.
Thank you, Malin. It's certainly promising to hear about the tool and how it can help restoration efforts across the globe becoming water-wise and long-term successful. It is now time for the third and final solution. Let me invite Dr. Amy Duchel, Senior Forestry Officer and Team Leader of Forests and Climate in FAO's Forestry Division, FAO. Please, Amy, introduce us to the work FAO is doing in the headwaters of Zambezi River in Zambia. Yeah.
Hello? Yes, okay. Hello, I'm Amy Duchel, a Senior Forestry Officer and leading the Forest and Climate team. And actually, I'm just going to turn it straight over to a video that was produced by FAO colleagues on the forest water climate nexus in the Zambezi headwaters in Zambia. I would like to first thank my colleagues who are online, especially Sara Casayas, who works very closely with SIWI on the forest and water work, and her team, as well as the UN RED program and our FAO colleagues in the UN RED program who supported this work. Finally, the University of Valencia, because the Polytechnic University of Valencia, because the video that you're about to see was very much based on their work and a decision support tool that they made for forests and water. So I say no more, and I let the video speak for itself. Thanks.
The Zambezi River, one of Africa's largest rivers, is central to the economies and environmental systems of the 8 countries that cover its transboundary basin. The headwaters of the Zambezi can be found in Zambia's northwestern province. The area is covered by Mayombo woodlands that play a crucial role in regulating water quantity, quality, and timing, while also storing large amounts of carbon. This is the forest-water climate nexus. However, deforestation and forest degradation loom due to land use changes, population growth, and economic activities like mining, charcoal production, and agriculture. Additionally, climate change poses risks such as decreased rainfall, increased warming, and heightened water stress in Zambia. Halting deforestation and promoting sustainable forest use in the Zambezi's headwaters are essential for the continued provision of ecosystem services, impacting water and food security, climate mitigation, and adaptation, while bolstering the resilience of local communities. With support from the UN RED program, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations is bringing together Zambian and international partners, civil society, local communities, and academia. Focusing on 5 key districts, the partners combine local knowledge, national monitoring data, remote sensing data, and state-of-the-art models and tools, such as Sepal Resilient Rivers and CAFE, into a comprehensive assessment of the Zambezi's forest-water climate nexus. Local communities are central to the assessment, acting as key climate actors and securing carbon sequestration and water-related services through sustainable forest management, enhancing both forest and community resilience. By emphasizing the economic benefits of conserving, restoring, and sustainably using the forest, the assessment also identifies new and diverse sources of finance for local climate action. This includes improved forest value chain enterprises, carbon market opportunities, and payment for ecosystem services schemes, fostering partnerships with local companies and organizations. The knowledge generated by collaborating partners will inform local decision-making, support climate action, and maximize ecosystem services. These efforts will increase the resilience of headwater communities and forest ecosystems, sending ripples of positive change throughout the Zambezi Basin.
We can have an applaud for that as well, I think. So, what a segue, since we're now moving into the next phase of this session. Amy, I won't let you rest too long because I would like to move over to the next and ask you to take a seat in the panel, by the panel. So, Dr. Amy Duchel, welcome. We also would like to welcome to the panel Mr. Fumihiko Tominaga, who works at the Secretariat of the Green Climate Fund, GCF, as a climate policy specialist in the Office of Governance Affairs, and Mr. Goodwin Fijani Gonwe, who is and has been since 2012 the Director of the Environment Management Department of the Government of Zambia. So with that, I will hand over to who I am now brother with. You told me this morning that we are now brothers. My brother, Phil, please.
I might just take a seat here, I think. Thank you, Tagan. Thank you for joining our panel. To our keynotes, thank you so much. And I hope people have taken the messages or the visual and the messages about how we can be stronger in collaborating. But I've got a series of questions that I want to pose to our panellists. The first question is to each one of you to answer individually. So the first question is, how can your organisation catalyse the implementation of the UNFCCC decision through ecosystems-based local actions? And I'd like to ask Fishwani to start with that, please.
Thank you very much for that question. For my organization, Zambia, we have this project you looked at as a first step. We have an area, Northwestern Province, which has a wealth of knowledge which we need to know, and we need to start somewhere. And the project offers that opportunity to learn. There are traditional aspects of knowledge that we need to tap into. And with this collaborative effort, as partners, we work together, get to know what was not known, and we convert that into science and solutions. That is how we can move, and we hope to move in this aspect.
Fumihiko?
Yes, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. So Green Climate Fund, in case you don't know about our organization, it's a multilateral climate fund established by the UNFCCC Convention, and we are serving the Paris Agreement. And our main mission is to support developing countries' transition to climate resilient and low carbon societies. We are in the midst of replenishment, our second replenishment, and we are about to finalize it. But along with that, this replenishment process, we have come up with a new strategic plan for Green Climate Fund, and the locally led action, including nature-based solution, is at the core of our strategic plan. It's one of the priorities under our new strategic plan. And how we do this is we set up, well, actually we had, even before this new strategic plan came in force, we had a modality called Enhanced Direct Access Enhanced Direct Access RFP, Request for Proposals. And we ask our partners to establish a fund or some sort of facility where we provide the funding and we only agree on parameters through which we support different locally led initiatives. And by using this support, by using this modality, we have been able to provide support to local communities where adaptation needs are most crucial. So that's one way GCF is approaching this locally led action.
Thank you, Fumihiko. Dr. Amy Duchel, please.
Thank you so much for the question. And, you know, FAO is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, is a UN technical agency. And so really what we bring to a lot of these issues is technical support and trying to get the best science into the hands of policymakers. And I think something that we've seen throughout this COP28, especially as relate to forests, is there's a huge call for beyond carbon approaches. And there's all this new science now that's showing that, the forest-water relationship. So as, the evapotranspiration along with other physical and chemical processes of forests, this can give us up to 20 to 40% bonus mitigation that's not at all accounted for in the UNFCCC. This is stunning. And actually what that means, because of this global cooling effect, and that's really most pronounced in tropical regions, that for FAO directly affects, agricultural productivity and food security. And so we're really trying to elevate the importance of this forest, water, climate nexus that you saw in the video to decision makers to really understand that forests are one of our greatest allies in terms of thinking of water services for climate mitigation, climate adaptation, and of course, all the other benefits that forests bring. So coming from that, and as a partner in the Forest and Water Champions, a proud partner, trying to bring those messages to the global stage, and then directly, serving our members through technical support and advocacy on the ground.
Awesome, thank you, Amy. We might stay with you because I've now got a question for each of you as individuals, and then I want to round off again with a question to roll off the panel and get you to answer that particular question individually. So, Dr. Amy Dishell, when funding is secured, as an implementing agency, how does FAO ensure the money or the investments reach the areas that are most needed?
So, FAO we have a headquarters, of course, but we rely on an extensive network of 5 regional offices, 11 sub-regional offices, and 134 country offices. And so when we're thinking about projects and mobilization of resources, it's really close to it's at the government level. FAO support, we really are focused on improving livelihoods through sustainable forest management by communities. And I think that video on Zambia is a very good example of this really community-based approach that can have impact and action at the national level with our partners in Zambia, of course. And I think the main point is that always having the eye on the ultimate people who we're hoping to serve and support. And if we're thinking about the forest, water, climate nexus, it's local farmers, it's local communities, it's indigenous peoples who are serving as the stewards of the world's forests, and really trying to ensure that all projects, all interventions start with that group first in our minds, and then working with our stakeholders in country, in region, and at the global level to figure out how best to work together to actually serve the people who need it the most and who are doing us the greatest service by taking care of the world's forests and trees.
Marabu, thank you, Amy. To Fumihiko, got a question for you. And I'm going to round off with the individual questions with Fishani. But Fumihiko, what challenges and opportunities are there for engaging with local communities, Indigenous and First Nations people in adaptation processes, implementation, and how do you ensure that the money or the investments reach them?
Thank you. So I think one of the challenges we often face is by design, GCF works with national governments. Our entry points, our focal points are usually one of the ministries in the central government. So that's, I think that could be a little bit, makes us difficult to work directly with local communities, local governments, indigenous communities as well. However, we do have, especially for indigenous peoples, we do have a indigenous people advisory group that we have established. So we do have their voices and knowledge reflected in our operations. And also for more our operational part, as I mentioned, this EDA modality will allow us to work with local communities through our partners. And also another opportunity or another entry point we can use is we emphasize the importance of direct access. So this means that we not only UN agencies like FAO or World Bank, we also have partners, national institutions, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Finance as our accredited partners. So through these different locally based or even it's a national level, it's I think we can provide funding to different channels through which we can also reach to local communities.
Thank you, Marabu Fumihiko. And Fishwani, question for you. How can government agencies ensure that local, traditional, Indigenous knowledge is included in decision-making processes? Do you have any examples for us to share with us, please?
Thank you, Phil, for that question. For Zambia, the structures are already there. We begin at Parliament. We have the House of Chiefs. That means the chiefs and traditional affairs are represented, which means we have a goal. So the knowledge from below can sift up to there, but we need to catalyze that. Secondly, there is also the Zambia Parliamentary Conservation Caucus, which looks at conservation matters, and this one has been formed to look at climate change as well as environment and natural resources. That's another opportunity. On the lower ranks, we have the National Heritage Conservation Commission, which looks at heritage matters, and we have forestry and so on and so forth. So what is the gap? The people in the villages do not have a channel through which they can take their knowledge up. We need to bridge that gap. How? The chiefs need to participate more in analysis, scholarly analysis, which has been missing because most of our chiefs do not participate in that area. So there is a gap. They have the knowledge, but there is no link to the scholars. So I've seen a few who have tried to upscale what they know by getting some degrees and so on and so forth, but this has not been institutionalized. So we need that part to be bridged so that the chiefs can also participate in giving the knowledge and push it up to the decision makers.
Marabu, thank you for answering those questions. I want to round off with just a question about the future. And in one sentence, I'd like to ask, and we'll start with you, Fishwani, and work our way back again. In one sentence, what does the future look like?
One sentence. Okay. To begin with, the traditional affairs, you may need to know there is an example. We have knowledge being harnessed by, for instance, the UNESCO's masterpieces of oral and intangible heritage is being practiced in the area that we've talked about. Such knowledge needs to be harnessed. We need to know more, and we need to publish it. So, with interventions, with appropriate interventions, the future is bright. But with the status quo, the future is bleak.
Thank you, Fishwani. Fumihiko, listen, we've got plenty of time. I shouldn't have asked you to try to encapsulate that in one sentence. That's my bad. But please, Fumihiko.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a good one. It's kind of hard to go next this guy. But yeah, I think I also would like to be on a positive note. Now, especially with GCF, we have been able to replenish ourselves, and we have, by now, I think we have 31 contributors, and we have mobilized about $12.8 billion for the next 4 years. And climate change is not getting any better right now. And water, forest nexus, and water is especially an important area. We have to invest. It's a cross-cutting area. And I think we are here to support. And we are also actively reaching out to different partners to develop projects. But I think we would like to be, we would like to catalyze changes from our side. And yeah, I think we want to be solution-oriented, and we want to be solving this issue together with our partners. Thank you.
Marabu, thank you Fumihiko. Amy and Prisca, just before you start, Prisca, I hope you're still online because I'm going to ask you to provide your reflections on that question that I've asked. But Dr. Amy Duchel first, please.
It's building on what my colleague here just said. I think, you know, putting water at the center of climate action is a game changer, in fact, because it's so tangible and it's so absolutely central to lives and livelihoods at every level. And you then, you know, when I was just talking about this sort of forests and water relationship, you then also naturally can have the carbon co-benefits. But thinking of water as the entry point and the angle for action, I think the traction, you know, will exponentially increase if we pursue that strategy.
Thank you. Prisca, are you still online? Not sure. Okay. Look, yeah, we're going to show the graphics up, but first and foremost, panelists, your animation, your passion in your answers and the delivery of those answers to our questions, and Amy, yes, and then Fumihiko with my friend. You know, collaboration, and you use the word solution. That's the way we should be thinking. And what we've hoped the audiences have seen some great initiatives that are taking place to bring about change, to make sure that the future is a bright future, a sustainable future, a resilient future. So we're now going to move into the graphic harvesting. Have you all taken down the Mentimeter number? We're not showing the Mentimeter, but now we've got a bit of a different initiative here. It's the graphic harvesting that's captured some of the very essence of today's conversations. And I want to have that discussion with the panel. So have we got the graphic harvesting ready? Image? Okay, we will keep rolling whilst we're getting prepared for that. We've got a few minutes. What I might just get everybody to do very quickly, please give our panellists and our keynotes a round of applause, please. Thank you. What I might do now is maybe... Yeah. Well, I was going to hand over to Mike Degan. Thomas, I might get you to round off with the Honourable Carleen Maywald.
Yeah, I think we have to come back to the graphics unless they pop up during the minutes that we have left. I want to thank you start with thank you, Phil, Amy, Fumihiko, and Goodwin, for your excellent participation and answers and insights shared in the panel. But also Malin, and of course it is a great honor to introduce Ms. Carleen Maywald to give us the final notes. The South Australian Water Ambassador and former Minister of South Australia. So please welcome Catherine. Carleen, sorry.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And I'd just like to thank our keynote speakers and panellists for a very interesting conversation. And there was some really significant common themes coming out in everything that was spoken. And I think one of the ones that is forefront for me is that word collaboration, that doing things together. It seems to me that the status quo of us all working in silos and thinking that we can solve the solutions by ad hoc, addressing problems in an ad hoc way, just is not going to cut the mustard for the future. We really need to work hard to collaborate. We need to create new partnerships. We need to create new relationships with different sectors. Phil said that, we've got to be better together, and what price do we put on knowledge? And that knowledge is not just the knowledge of science, that knowledge of science that sits within big institutions that very rarely gets to the grassroots. And the grassroots are the people who have the knowledge that's locally that needs to be able to integrate with that scientific knowledge to then inform communities who can then inform policymakers. Because let's face it, policymakers are only going to act when the votes are there for them to act. And if we're not actually engaging with our communities with our knowledge, then our communities are not driving with their votes what the policies should be. The example in Zimbabwe is a fabulous example with the Zambezi River communities, the upstream and the downstream, and the engaging between those communities so that it's not just government policy people going out and talking to individual communities, it's enabling those communities to interact with each other, to understand each other's problems, and then to collectively determine the extent of the problem and the extent of the solutions that need to be funded and implemented. Marlon, you talked about, the cross-sectorial solutions. They are just so important. Nature-based solutions really do closely align with climate adaptation objectives and goals. And I think one of the things that you had in your little slide there, that was with your 6 items, you had number 5 as optional, which was the indicators for monitoring and evaluation. And I understand why that gets put in as optional, but to me it's critical. If you don't have the feedback loops coming back to communities to tell them whether or not what they're doing is successful or not, and you can only do that through monitoring and evaluation, you are not going to be able to keep communities on board. And I think one of the exciting things about thinking about that is that if you continually put it there as optional, it's the first thing that's cut in the funding schemes. And so I think we really need to think that a little bit differently. We also had from Ishiko some discussion around some fabulous initiatives that are looking at the high-level criteria and parameters on which funding is provided to communities. No longer is a one-size-fits-all from central government appropriate. It never was appropriate. And I don't know why we thought it was appropriate, because localised solutions are what are lasting. Those local communities are going to be there long after the politicians are gone and long after the central government agency people have moved on. And so providing and trying to impose a top-down approach is just foolhardy. It's not going to work, and it's not going to be sustainable in the long run. So having criteria around your funding that enables high-level criteria and parameters, but enables localised solutions and development of those programs is really, really important. And congratulations for the initiative to have Indigenous People Advisory Group, which I think is absolutely fantastic, because Indigenous people's knowledge is really key. Stephen, he talked about the bottom-up approach versus the top-down approach. I've touched on that, but I think the bottom-up approach gives us a very, very different answer and a different solution to climate resilience than a top-down approach. A top-down approach is cost-effective and quick for governments. So that's why it's easy. A bottom-up approach is expensive, it takes longer, but it's lasting. And so we must continue to push for those bottom-up approaches to occur. Amy, Landscape for Water, the work that you're doing with FAO and the need to have that technical expertise, not only informing the policymakers, but developing that technical expertise using grassroots information that FAO is doing, and your reach out into those countries and communities and how you're feeding is exactly what we need to be doing a lot more of. FAO is a very unique organisation because it does have that incredible reach, and I heard from your your presentation that not only are you reaching out into the communities to develop that technical solution, but then you're taking that and using that to influence at the political level, which is really exciting. So through all of that, I heard three key messages. First one is collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. So second one is community, community, community. And the third one is we can't do it alone. And that's different to collaboration, because collaborate, we can partner with who we choose to. But we really need, as a globe, to be standing up and creating a dynamic force for change in the way that we do things. The status quo is no longer acceptable, and we must turn on its head everything that we're doing in the way in which we operate individually. We can change what we do, which will have an impact on those around us, which will then have a broader impact on those in the organisations we work in. So from that, I think that it's been a really interesting session, and I'd like to thank all of our speakers and our moderator, Phil, and to the sponsors, and I'll hand back to Thomas. Thank you. I see that we've got the dynamic up there now. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Carleen. What an excellent closing at the same time as this fantastic illustration which comes up. You said collaboration. This illustration is made out of collaboration because all of you in this room has contributed to this. Communication. This is how we communicate. Hi, Mina. I haven't seen me before. Sorry. And also that we need. No one is alone. We cannot do this alone. So thank you so much, Carleen, for summarizing what all of you have shared today, and all of you in this room as well. Please join us and become water and forest champions forward in all aspects. Water is at the essence, as you said. So with that, I would like to thank all the speakers, all the panelists, all the audience in here in the room, as well as online. And with that, let's go out and be water forest champions. Thank you.
Thomas, I might just slide them that way so we can. Amy, you're going to be in here.